Hey, what's going on? It's Dalton from Caffeine GT. We're getting ready to do a Caffeine GT car review. Admittedly, I'm much better at making t-shirts than I am videos. So this is just going to be a standard me talking about the thing that I'm driving while I'm driving it. This is the 2001 NB Miata NB2. All right. Hey, what's going on? It's your boy Dalton coming at you from the Caffeine GT Miata, the happiest car on the face of the earth. So I thought I would do just like a quick little car review because I think this is a phenomenal car. A little bit about this purchase. I initially was avoiding the Mazda Miata at all costs. But why? I'm glad you asked. To me, the Mazda Miata was cliche. Everyone had one. As everyone knows, people always say Miata stands for Miata is always the answer. And for those who know me, I tend to drive cars or purchase cars that are a bit odd, a bit quirky. I hardly ever go for the sure thing. That method has sent me down the road of amazing experiences with cars and quirky cars that made me smile, that make other people smile, that get attention, that just have cool characteristics. But it has also led me down the road of not really ever having a car that does exactly what I want it to. I had a 3-liter Z4 and that was great. I took it to autocross, but it just never felt robust enough for heavy-duty track days. I had a Z4M after that, and it was robust enough for heavy-duty track days. As a matter of fact, just like right out of the box, I think the only thing that you actually need is some upgraded brake pads. But it was so expensive and so rare to maintain that you didn't want to crash it. I mean, you don't want to crash any car, but this one in particular, when you have to wait 3 months in the middle of the summer for bumpers to come in because somebody rear-ended you, it just makes you paranoid to do anything that could possibly damage that car. Oh, and don't get me started on like cost to repair. Engine stuff, valve jobs that cost $1,500 that you're supposed to do every, I don't know, 30 or 40,000 miles. The 370Z that I bought, it was just too expensive for me to do heavy modifications to the interior, because I always kind of had the feeling that, eventually I would sell that car and move on to something else. And at that point, not having a situation like that, where I've literally ripped out part of the interior, would help the resale value. And it came true. I did sell it, and it was nice that the car was mostly stock. This is supposed to be about the Mazda, so let me talk about that. First thing that comes to mind when I'm driving this thing is just the fun factor. You can really drive this car hard and possibly not even break the speed limit. I mean, you're churning through the engine, you're burning through the engine, churning out gear after gear after gear, and you're still doing like maybe 60 or 70 miles an hour. It's not to say that it's not possible of going 100, but you kind of don't really want to or need to in this car. This shift lever feel is amazing. I was gonna go straight for the short throw, the aftermarket shifter, and the big old long shift lever, but what I decided to do first was actually rebuild the shift lever, or at least the bushings anyway, because I wanted to experience what everybody was talking about with this amazing shift feel. And I have to tell you, it's really, really nice. It's firm. You can feel everything that the engine and transmission are doing if you're holding on to the shift lever. It's notchy, it's mechanical, it's satisfying, And I found out just by chance, because I didn't realize it when I first bought the car, but it has a 6-speed manual, which makes it so much better on the highway. The first couple of times I had it on the highway, to be honest, I didn't even leave 5th gear because I didn't know that it had another one. So I was, up in the high RPMs just trying to cruise down the highway. Lo and behold, there was another one. I didn't figure that out until I went to rebuild the shift lever, and I was like, oh my gosh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the little on the symbol, and I was like, holy shit, I have 6 gears. It's almost like I upgraded the car. Okay, so that's fun factor. It's tossable. You can take it around a roundabout and just smile ear to ear, because you're just, you're taking it at speed, and you're not worried about leaving the road and going into a ditch or into another car. Doesn't mean that you don't have to be careful. You have to respect any car. But this one, it's hard to get it at, get it to the limits. I also just put on Nito T05s with a 15x8 wheel, and my gosh, it just grips for days. As a matter of fact, I don't ever actually think that I want to drive this car at a at the limit of grip, because if I do, that means I'm just going way too fast, and I'm gonna get myself in trouble. You have so much grip and so much handling. Parts are cheap. It's amazing how cheap they are. I think you can get a rotor for like $100. I got this roll bar that you see behind me. I think it was $700. Radiator, I think you can get one for like between 150 to 300, depending on if you're replacing stock or if you're upgrading. Turbo kits are cheaper. Everything is just cheap, and there's so much support, so much aftermarket, and they made a ton of these cars. And for once, I decided I don't want to have a rare car. Most of the cars that I've had are rare, and it presents, its own problems. I think that rare cars are great if you don't plan to put many miles on them, and it's just going to be kind of garage queen, or if you're just like filthy rich and you don't mind waiting for parts to come in. If you're not in that situation and you actually want to like drive the piss out of your car, which I like to do, especially if it's ever going to be your track day car or your autocross car, you're probably going to want to get something that was highly mass produced. And honestly, that's what I did. And I have peace of mind that if I need something, parts are going to be readily available and cheap to buy. Oh, and the thing is super comfortable. I've had 4 Roadsters in my life. 1977 MGB, 2 Z4Ms, and this one. And this is by far the most comfortable. It's not as big as the Z4s. On the outside, it's a lot lighter than the Z4s too, but on the inside, it's actually pretty spacious, and I don't get the sense of claustrophobia when the roof is up in the Miata as much as I did in the Z4s. The Z4s, I think the shoulder line was up higher. There wasn't as much space behind me here. And not that I store anything back here, but you see things out of your, peripheral vision. And when they're closed up and high up, you do get a sense of, I really want the windows down, or I want the top, top down or something, just to kind of like relieve the situation. I'm not even claustrophobic. But yeah, those cars, yeah, they kind of did that. In terms of feeling like a British Roadster, this feels like a British Roadster, but with the reliability of a Japanese car. The MGB and the Miata, they give me kind of similar vibes. The Z4s, they never really reminded me of a British Roadster. They reminded me of German Roadsters because that's what they were. You know, super fun to drive, and also it makes the F-Type R seem like a freaking rocket ship. I get out of driving this car for, you know, 3-4 days or a week or whatever, and then I jump into the F-Type R, and yeah, it is fast, you know, by the numbers, anywhere from 0 to 60, you know, 3.5 to 3.8 seconds, depending on which article you're reading. But after a while, you get used to the horsepower, and then you start thinking to yourself, do I want more horsepower? You honestly start thinking that. Not really a problem when you get out of this car and go into that car. You actually really, really appreciate what you've got. So in my opinion, the best mod for an F-Type R is a Miata, if that makes any sense, because you really feel the power in the F-Type R, or any fast car. Fast car and parking space. Don't go and spend $10,000 on power adders. Spend $10,000 on a slow car, on a slow sports car. You'll appreciate everything much more. So anyway, that's my review of the Miata. I'm not sure if I even gave you any information on the Miata. It's about, I think, 2,400 pounds, 0 to 60 with this model. It's got the 1.8 straight 4, so I think it's good for like 152 horsepower. So 0 to 60 is in like 7.6 or 7.1 seconds. And that's plenty fast enough to keep up with modern traffic. I not once have I felt like, oh my God, I'm in a slow, old, rickety car that can't keep up. If I'm driving spiritedly, I'm still out accelerating everyone to, you know, to whatever cruising speed. Like everyone, unless somebody else is flooring it. To be honest, people just don't drive that fast. I don't even know why they make cars with 0 to 60 times sub 4 seconds, because people just don't do it, except for me sometimes. But yeah, I think that's about it. I hope you enjoyed the little chat. I'll be back sometime with a little chat. All right, it's your boy Dalton again. One more video on the Miata review. So, pardon me. I am filming in the dark, obviously, so that's why the camera's not pointed at my face. But there's something that I wanted to talk about with the Miata, and that is you get a feeling of rawness. I can't talk to the NC or the ND Miatas because I've not driven one yet, and I'm sure that because they're newer, you know, maybe they have a bit more refinement, but there's a certain rawness and a certain character that you get from the NA and the NB, and you get that rawness without thinking that the car is going to break down on you. Another phrase that I don't know if it makes sense or not is that I feel like I could go on a road trip in this thing. It doesn't feel like it's gonna break down. The reason I say feel is because I've only owned it for like, I don't know, less than a month by now, so I don't know if it will break down. But when you've been working on cars for as long as I have, you just get a feeling. Like my S4, I always feel like it's gonna break down. This one, I feel like I could drive to the next state and be perfectly fine and then drive it back. I'm not sure if that makes sense. If you're a car guy or a crazy person, then maybe you'll know what I'm talking about. That's just the feeling I get from this. But even though I feel secure in its mechanical soundness and its mechanical ability, I also, pardon me, I also feel a certain rawness that can only come from a car that was made before a certain time frame, before they refined the feeling, the response, the visceralness out of the cars. Right now, if you get a car that has any kind of visceral feeling, it's because they had to engineer it back in. So as much as I love the F-Type R, it feels very much like a vehicle that they got to a certain level of refinement and all that kind of stuff, and then they're like, oh yeah, the driver needs to feel what's going on, and so it's almost like they had to like engineer some feeling back into the car. They had to engineer some chassis back in. They had to engineer some sound back in, and they did it successfully. It is a car that pardon me, got allergies. It is a car that very much gets under your skin to drive. But this one, it feels like this is just what it was. And they got to a certain point, and they were like, we love it. And then they just left it the F alone. And it just feels like the car's natural personality. So yeah, pound for pound, I think maybe this is the best sports car I've ever owned. One more thing, the pedal box is amazing, the steering is amazing, the chassis feedback is amazing. You just I don't know if you could hear that. That was just me, heel towing. But you heel toe in this car the same way you would in a video game. I mean, the flywheel is just freaking perfect for heel towing. There are some cars you heel toe and then the engine regains speed too fast and you feel like you didn't even heel toe at all and the engine just bogs down, or you heel toe or the engine just goes way too high and you just feel like you're about to blow the engine up. This just heel toes like a dream. The pedal box is perfect. You just flick it with the side of your foot. You don't really heel toe. You just flick it with the side of your foot and it's just there. And there's a certain amount of gas pedal that you want to give a good heel toe. Some cars you have to heel toe more than you thought you needed to, and some cars you heel toe, it just, I don't know, it's just perfect. So anyway, parting thoughts.